So I've been reading Marvel Comics for about 2 years at this point, a little over that, and I first started it, I had a love affair with Marvel. Everything was amazing. I came into it from the movies, reading the comics, reading what I loved, read some bunch of Iron Man stuff, fell in love with that character, moved on to other characters, everything like that. Read the events, some not so great, some amazing, and leading up into where we are now with Civil War II, and I think there is a very inherent problem with Marvel right now, and it's tough for me because Marvel has always been something that I can kind of cling to, and that I'm always unapologetically like, I'm gonna like this. It's Marvel, I'm gonna like it, and as I grow up and as I just read more and more and develop kind of my own taste for comics and not just everything's great about Marvel no matter what, I start to realize what more seasoned comic fans are talking about when they say stuff like, Bendis is a garbage writer who ignores continuity and doesn't read anyone else's books, and stuff like that. So let's get into the crux of this video. Basically, a comic came out today at the time of this recording called Civil War II number 5. It's by Brian Michael Bendis with art by David Marquez, and it's not a good comic book. It's not great. And that makes me really sad because Civil War II so far, in my opinion, has been a pretty cool event. Originally, I had issues with it because it came out with this like weird little postcard that just said Civil War II, and it was Iron Man and Sam Wilson Captain America about to punch each other, and it came out just like very quietly around the time of the Civil War movie, well, a couple months before that was coming out, and people were angry, and rightfully so, because this was obviously just based on this. It was just a cash grab to start another Civil War thing that sales could be boosted by the movie. And it was even more like weird that, as you know, in Civil War II now, it's Captain Marvel versus Iron Man, not Iron Man versus Captain America. So it's weird that they would do that, but that's not the point. The point is, this issue just kind of made me realize something that people have been trying to tell me for a while about Marvel events and comics in general and just like big event stuff, and that I think event fatigue, or just Bendis being not the best writer in the world, is finally starting to hit me. And that's a really depressing thought for me. My issue with this comic is not that it's like a totally bad comic, which it admittedly is not that great. It's just, nothing happens in it. Literally nothing happens, and anything that does happen just further digs a hole into something that I thought they were trying to get themselves out of. A big criticism of the original Civil War event is that they didn't show both sides of the story, and when they did, they made Tony Stark out to be a victim, and they made Steve Rogers this hero who was on the right side of the event. The whole thing is choose your side. Who do you believe in? Civil War is supposed to be this story that pits you as a reader in a place that you're scared because you don't know who do you want to side with. It's like mom and dad fighting. It's not something that should be enjoyed. It's not something that should be taken lightly. And the original Civil War, and especially in Civil War II, it looks like it's turning towards that way. The first few issues of the book, and really just the first few issues of this event being a thing in the Marvel Universe, it was great. Tony Stark didn't really have a great argument for his side, but it made sense. He's a futurist, he just doesn't want to mess with anything in the world because who knows what could happen. And Captain Marvel was very vigilant in her stance of, if there's a chance that someone could get hurt, I need to fix it. And I was on board with that. And it's something that, like, Peter Parker talks about a lot. Obviously, the great power, great responsibility thing. If you have the power to take care of that, you should at least go look into it. But the problem is they took Carol down a road of basically making her out to be a villain, just like they did with Tony Stark in the original Civil War. She just started arresting people left and right, and I was fine with that. She was being a little hard-headed, of course, but people, like, in the Ultimate series were like, alright, you need to slow down, and in the Miss Marvel series, Kamala Khan was worried about her little group that Carol assigned to her that were going crazy and arresting everyone left and right. She had people that were not okay with her side of things, and that was great. That's what we needed to see with Carol's side. We needed to see that she wasn't infallible. I'm just going to go ahead and jump into spoilers for this issue, so leave now if you don't want those. Basically, the thing that is the crux of this issue and that kind of ruins the event so far for me, I'm not going to write it off completely, there's 3 more issues left, who knows what could happen, but Ulysses shows everyone, doesn't just have a vision himself, he makes everyone see a vision of Miles Morales Spider-Man effectively killing Steve Rogers Captain America. And first of all, there's a lot of stuff behind that, like, we all know Miles Morales would never kill Steve Rogers, they're on the same side, that's not Miles' MO at all. We know that because of Nick Spencer's run on Captain America that Steve is going to be alive forever. That's editorial stuff. Who knows? Who cares? But after that, after the vision, nobody steps back and says, what the hell? What was that? We need to figure, like, what was that? The only person who shows a little bit of like apprehension towards that vision is Kamala Khan, who runs towards Miles and is basically like, no, that's not going to happen. Calm down. But Carol just stands there immediately and says, I'm sorry, kid, you're under arrest. Miles is a character who is, for lack of a better word, innocent. He's Spider-Man. He's basically Peter Parker Spider-Man when he was first starting out. None of these heroes expect him to kill Captain America. So, of course it makes sense for Carol to arrest the kid, but I think it makes more sense for her as a person to step back and say, okay, we need to look at this. Something's wrong here. Obviously, Miles would never do this. No one would ever do this. So what's going on here? Brian Michael Bendis is a writer that not a lot of people are super on board with. He's written so many good things, but he's also written a lot of garbage comic books. One of the best books that I've read of his is Ultimate Spider-Man, which just so happens to be the introduction of Miles Morales. He created that character, which is why, obviously, he's making him such a big role in Civil War 2. But that's the thing, that was an alternate universe. The reason that book is so good is because nobody could complain about continuity, because he was creating it, essentially. If you want to tell a story about Iron Man and Captain Marvel duking it out and not care about anyone else's motivations or intentions, do that. But do it in an alternate universe, or do it in a place where it makes sense. Not here, where Luke Cage in his own book is saying, hey, I don't want to get involved with this again. Last time everyone fought each other, it didn't end well, so I'm not going to get involved. And then in your issue, he shows up and is fighting people. Or don't go kill Bruce Banner based on the idea that he's going to turn into the Hulk, even though in another issue he was cured already. Civil War 2 so far just seems like Bendis is doing whatever he wants. He has this story that he decided that he was going to do forever ago and didn't care about anything else and whatever, and he's telling a story, which is fine. Again, I don't want to crush on his story. It's a fine story, but it ignores so many things. And even in the context of itself, it's not a good representation of, like, a fracture of ideas or ideals and stuff like that. Like I said earlier, the core of Civil War is based on the idea that you don't know what to believe. You don't know who to side with. But in this book, you do know who to side with. Sure, there's the idea, like I was saying earlier, about how I initially was with Captain Marvel. I was like, yeah, if there's a chance that someone could get hurt, you have to fix it, no matter what. You gotta take that into precaution. Even if there's a chance that someone's gonna get punched, you gotta go make that punch not happen, because that's your responsibility. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to Bendis being the only one writing this book. Honestly, you cannot write two totally different perspectives if you're just one guy. You have a bias. It's definitely there. You can see it in this book. Bendis is on Iron Man's side. It's very clear and very apparent. And the first Civil War had the same issue. Mark Millar wrote that and was very clearly on Captain America's side. He basically made Iron Man out to be this terrible tyrant who did everything in secret and just ruled with an iron fist. And that was not what we were supposed to be seeing. And you can do Civil War correctly. Captain America Civil War, the movie, showed both sides perfectly. Throughout that entire movie, you don't know who to side with. And they show the sides clearly. And this issue specifically is supposed to be the big fight scene, and a lot of the time people are confused as to why there's a big fight scene in an event where you're fighting about ethics and morality instead of just power. And yes, that's a fair point. You don't need to have a giant, actual fight scene in this. In fact, this fight just comes out of nowhere for the most part. They're talking, and they're all fine, and then just Carol and Tony are like, hey, I don't like you. And Tony's like, you drove me to this. Even though, no. They were literally the issue before. They were chilled out in a room just talking about their sides and working things out, which is way more interesting and was way better than the shitfest that this is. Again, going back to the Civil War movie, there's a huge fight in that one. And yes, you could probably take it out of the movie and it wouldn't mean much, but it's cleverly written. All the characters have actual good dialogue that makes sense in the context of their character, and it's just a fun scene. And I think that's what fight scenes are supposed to be. They're just supposed to be fun. These are superhero comics at the end of the day. We want to see people fight. And yeah, it's way more interesting in some people's views to see them sit down and morally talk about this huge Civil War II problem and Ulysses' visions and all that. But sure, we want to see them fight a little bit. That's what comics are all about. That's what these superheroes are all about. It's action. They're action at the end of the day. But you can still have the big fight mean something. You can still have the big fight actually be written and as a part of the story, instead of just being everyone punching at each other and talking out of character for 20 minutes until eventually Ulysses forces everyone to have a vision of something that's almost definitely not going to happen. Big events like this don't need to happen every day. They don't need to come around and blow up the status quo and change everything. Sometimes you could just have your normal stories for a year or two and continue just like that. Take Avengers Standoff, for example. It was a very short, self-contained series that was fluidly introduced to the Marvel Universe and happened, then stopped, and it had some effects, obviously, but they didn't market it as this big status quo changing thing that's going to change the entire Marvel Universe. The stakes have never been higher. It was just the story of Pleasant Hill and a bunch of people getting involved with it. And it, in and of itself, was kind of a Civil War type thing. And they showed the sides of it better. Obviously, S.H.I.E.L.D. was in the wrong, but you could see where they were coming from. My ideal world for superhero comics and Marvel comics and whatever, where events keep happening and happening, is that they don't. That big events happen occasionally, maybe once every 2 to 3 years, but most of the time, we just have good stories by good creators going on with single characters that maybe cross over occasionally. Civil War II is not even done yet, and Marvel has already announced their big next event, Monsters Unleashed. And to be fair, it is not the biggest thing in the world. It's not another Secret Wars, it's not another Civil War II, it's not another whatever, Avengers vs. X-Men or anything like that. It is legit, they're marketing it as just superheroes are fighting monsters. And yes, if you read into it more, they're saying, the stakes have never been higher. They have to unite after the effects of Civil War II, because if they don't, there will be nothing to protect anymore or fight over, which, again, just stop. Obviously the stakes have to be higher because it's the next big event or whatever, but you can show that in the writing. You don't have to tell people that at the end of this story, if the superheroes don't come together and put away their little squabbles after Civil War II, that the Marvel Universe is not going to exist anymore. We don't need to know that. You can tell us that in the story, if that even happens at all. All of this kind of makes me realize that I want a Marvel reboot. That's something that I have hated the idea of for the years that I've been reading comics, and I'm warming up to the idea of it, and it's making me sad. I was a firm believer in Marvel's system of just relaunching every couple years, not completely rebooting and getting rid of their continuity, but just relaunching with number ones, starting new stories with new creative teams and all that, and keeping past continuity just in case you want it there, but kind of just restructuring things, changing status quo around a little bit. And that worked for a while. I thought that was great. Marvel Now went off without a hitch, got a lot of new readers in, got me in for the most part, but it seems like they're just like accelerating the time periods in which they actually relaunch. We're getting Marvel Now again, new Marvel Now or whatever, it's just called Marvel Now. We're getting that again this fall with new number ones and new series and stuff, and they're doing that because of the effects of Civil War II. So it looks like after every event, they're going to rebrand and relaunch. And it just makes me wonder if it would just be better or in their best interest to just totally reboot, to just start over, pull a new 52, condense all of their continuity into 10 years or whatever, and just start fresh. Maybe keep some existing stuff. This is what they kind of did with Secret Wars, but again, it was just a relaunching. They just brought things from their Ultimate Universe and other universes into the Marvel Universe instead of just completely starting over. And you don't have to completely start over. Everybody calling its inception about the New 52, they did not completely start over. They took what was important from their continuity, condensed it into 5 or 10 years, and then just told stories from there, and that was great. And we're in a point now where some of the older continuity is back with DC Rebirth, and that's all confusing to me. I don't know much about DC's continuity, but I can tell that people seem to be happy. A lot of the Rebirth stuff that I read has been great, and it does not seem as big of a mess as Marvel seems right now. Basically, at the end of the day, I just think that Marvel needs to take a break from huge, like, earth-shattering events, and it looks like they are, kind of, with the Monsters Unleashed event. I don't know. They're also doing, like, the Inhumans versus X-Men thing and the Death of X, but that's in the past or whatever. I don't know. But they're doing a whole bunch of stuff that just it makes me nervous, and it makes me scream, especially when I'm a month behind on comics, and that gives me so much anxiety because I feel like I'm missing out on all of this, and if I miss one issue, I feel like everything falls apart, and that's not something I should be able to worry about. I should just be able to read the books that I like and enjoy everything and just kind of go forth with that. I'm rambling again, so I'm just gonna end this video here. Consider some of the things that I said. I'm sure I've contradicted myself once or twice in this rambly video, or just brought up some stupid ideas, but yeah, let me know what you thought about, like, Civil War II issue 5, or just the current state of Marvel Comics in general. Again, I want to press the idea that I am still in love with Marvel and a lot of the stuff that they're doing. Vision is great. A lot of these books are great that are still going on, like Gwenpool and Miss Marvel and all this stuff. It's great. There's so many good books going on, but just more and more I realize that some of it, especially like their bigger books, might not be that great. So, I don't know. Food for thought.